So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. We're really excited. We're Parents for Climate, and we're a local group that is supported by a bigger organization called For Our Kids. It's a national organization, and they support parent groups across the country who are trying to sort of trying to self-organize and do what they feel is the most helpful in their region. And so Parents for Climate has united basically around the sense of duty to, ensure that our children have the best opportunities that they can for a good and healthy life. And we also basically dedicated ourselves to take bold, direct climate action for the sake of our children and for future generations. So that's who we are and how we're supported. And of course, I'd like to start our session, though, by acknowledging that with gratitude, we work and live and play on the traditional unceded territories of the Lekwungen speaking peoples. And we endeavor in our work to live and to minimize the harm that we perpetuate by our presence on this land. And we stand in solidarity with the sovereignty and resurgence of the Indigenous peoples. So Parents for Climate has done several sort of things of late, working sort of on local actions. We've done different things by writing our MLAs and publishing op-eds and painting banners and going to protests, writing formal government submissions. But recently we organized a rally at the legislature in support of the land defenders and Indigenous sovereignty. And we visited Fairy Creek blockades. All of us have been, and supporting in whatever way we can. And so then we really wanted to support Jessie's work. This is a really interesting and wonderful project. And so we decided to sort of get involved and bring this to as many people as we could and let people know about it. It's a great, amazing program for bringing action through art. And so if anybody wants, they can stay to the end, find out more about us, more about what Jessie and her program might be doing. And if not, you can try and connect with us after through email, Facebook, Instagram, all those great things. So we're going to have two parts to the program or this session. First, we're going to hear from Jessie, and then from several artists. I think we have 5 artists here tonight. It was so wonderful that there was going to be so many here. So looking forward to that. And then we'll open it up to questions. But of course, you can send some questions through chat if you're interested. We'll try and answer those at the end. All right. And I'm going to just turn it over to Pharaoh, who's going to introduce the wonderful Jessie. Thanks, everyone, for being here.
Hello, everyone. I have the pleasure of introducing Jessie Demers, who is an old, wonderful friend. And she is an artist and an arts administrator, as well as an independent curator and a long-time forest protector living on Lekwungen territory. And she had a vision for this program last year, but it didn't really quite start rolling until the spring of this year. So I think Jeremy was the first one who started going up in about March. And so this residency brings together art and ecology, culture and activism. And for some of the participants has been also a springboard into deeper involvement with the blockades at Fairy Creek. Some people have more of a separation between the art and the blockades, and some people are merging that all together. It offers a way to make art in relationship with the trees and the ecosystem and the controversy that's happening around this space. So Jessie is going to speak about the program, and Mike, Kyle, Heather, and Jeremy are going to jump in here and there and talk to their own experiences and what they've been doing up there. If you have any questions as we go along for Jessie or any of the artists, please just pop them into the chat and we can get to those pretty much at the end of the presentation rather than kind of interrupt the flow. And if you're not sure where to find the chat, if it's just a little kind of word bubble thing at the bottom, and I'll just monitor that as we go along. All right. Thanks, Jessie, for being here. I'm looking forward to this, and to Mike and Kyle and Heather and Jeremy too. All right.
Thanks.
Take it away.
All right, thanks. This is a little side note just to say that Valerie texted me and she's trying to join. She said she registered, but she doesn't have a Zoom link. So if any of our friends have Valerie's contact and want to help her out, you can do that. But she should get a link because she registered. So anyways, yeah, thanks for joining. It was actually really good for me to sit down and kind of prepare for this and make the slideshow and just look back on the last 4 months, because it's been such a blur. You know, it's so action packed and so much has happened, and it kind of feels like we're in this phase of the program. To me, I imagine it being kind of like a midpoint where you know, things have changed a lot, and we're not we don't have a physical, you know, studio right now, but that kind of opens up other possibilities. So it feels like a good actually point in time to kind of take a little breather and look back. And so I'm, you know, happy to have the opportunity to do that with all of you. And I really, yeah, kudos to Parents for Climate and for our kids. It's inspiring for me to know that, you know, there's groups of parents that are thinking about climate change and that are taking leadership and, you know, showing their kids how to do that and bringing them along with you. And that's really awesome. Yeah, Pharaoh did a great introduction and already said, you know, a lot about it, but I was involved early on with Friends of Carmena Walbrand in the early 90s on Pachidak territory, involved with efforts to protect Cahex, Walbrand Valley. And sort of around that time that, well, I guess it was a little bit after that time that some of the people in the group connected with Elder Bill Jones and have had a relationship with him for a long time. It had been, a long time since there had been a direct action campaign to save old growth. I moved away from the island for about 10 years. And then when I came back and just saw the extent of the clear cutting that had happened and how little was left, it was really kind of a shock. And so I, you know, reconnected with Friends of Carmena Walbrand. And, you know, a few years later, this whole kind of movement sprang up, and Bill, you know, rallied support, and you know, we've stood with him, and those, you know, there's a chunk of folks in the Pachidak community that support protection of old growth as well, and so we've you know, been working with them, and then young hereditary chief Victor Peter, was so wonderful to meet him and to see him slowly kind of stepping into this role, and see him out, you know, building trails and connecting with other Indigenous people that support the protection of this territory. And the lands around Fairy Creek, Bill often talks about how his family used you know, the forest for spiritual purposes. And I'm going to play a video in a minute, actually, that features Bill and Victor and Jeremy. So it's kind of a nice encapsulation. But yeah, I think when you spend time in these forests, it's so inspiring, and it affects you on all levels of your humanity. I think when we connect with nature, you know, and with these ancient forests that have just evolved since the last ice age. There's kind of nothing like it until you've experienced it. I don't think you can ever really understand. And so just, you know, I know the power of art, and I wanted to bring artists into the forest to connect with the forest there, and to communicate out, you know, from their own experience as an artist, to use the language of art to communicate about their experience of being there. You know, some artists are using their art to, you know, talk about human interaction with nature, and the good and the bad things that come from that, you know, industry and nature. Randy Cook is, you know, hereditary chief, Kwakwaka'wakw chief, and so, you know, for him, his relationship with old growth is really unique, and so he speaks about that in his own artwork. He can't join us tonight, but he created an amazing mask. So anyways, I'm sort of jumping around, but I'm looking forward to just going through the slideshow and just showing the artwork and letting the artists speak for themselves. And not everybody was able to join us, but I think everybody who is here will be able to have a few minutes to speak. And then I'm looking forward to just, yeah, having some discussion and then talking about where things could lead from here. And so, yeah, looking forward to this. That's sort of all I'm going to say for now. So I think I'll just show this video because I feel like it's a really good introduction to the area. And I just learned how to do this a few minutes ago. So just a second. Oops. Sorry. Actually, maybe I'll just say one more thing while I'm getting ready here, that yeah, I think like artist residencies are such a unique opportunity to just be immersed in a totally different environment and to kind of shake things up from your usual art practice and just have a bunch of fresh, you know, influences. And also to it's been really interesting to see the interaction of the artists with these direct action land protection, you know, camps, and to see the relationships that have formed and how, you know, some artists have become involved in the direct action or in other ways, and how, you know, some folks who've been at the camps ended up getting involved with art making, and just that synergy was really awesome, and I think is just going to continue. So just wanted to say that. Okay, this should be the screen that I want. No. I'm trying. Okay, I'm having issues and I can't play that video.
She sent it to one of you. Jessie, have you tried starting the video first and then sharing the screen?
When I see the window that has the video on it, I click on it and then I click share, and it just keeps bringing back to the slideshow. Oh, I see where it is now. Okay, it's just did something weird. Okay. Do you all see what I see? A dark screen. Yes. Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just let this play.
The Fairy Creek watershed is a spiritual forest used for spiritual purposes up the Fairy Creek and Renfrew Creek area.
The first time I spent time in Eden Grove specifically, it felt like a space for reverence. And it felt like this, like a very holy place of just like a place to come and pray and respect. It was inspiring in the way that it was like this deep, like amazement and awe.
I respect Mother Nature, been here for many generations. Old growth trees. Kind of like, to me, it's like elders.
There is very little of it left, just remnants of our ancient forest.
A tree is not an inanimate object. They are the denizens of the ancient forest. And I'm looking at something that's been there for 800 years, 1,000 years, and I'm painting its portrait. And it's important that it's understood as a portrait, because typically portraits are for painting humans, and in this case I'm wanting to paint a portrait of these trees in an effort or in a way to acknowledge their agency. They're all very unique. There's so many big old trees in this grove, and they're all extremely different. They're not just trees, they're individuals, and they are part of a greater community of plants and animals and humans too.
It's very important, I'll say, for me, to keep them standing.
When you go into a rainforest, like that's never been farmed and never been cut, it's not just one level, it's all the levels of life. It's decomposing and new birth and the joy as well as the sorrow. It's a full spectrum of all these emotions and feelings and spirits and animals and bugs and just everything.
This world is a spiritual place, the whole world, and that in fact we have to reserve places and protect and care for them for our children's needs in their future.
Other types of value that this place represents, aside from the monetary value of that tree, the value of biodiversity, the value of clean water, the value of water retention and holding the hillsides together, and salmon and orcas and myriad other species.
Spirit of this river is so powerful and deep. I feel like there's a huge uprising and an evolution happening.
And I also invite all people to come up to the forest, especially the old growth, for protection and care as you attend to your spiritual needs. And bring the kids. We're wanting to save what's left of it for the children's future and their spiritual needs.
Yeah, that's just a beautiful video. I love it. I'm going to switch over to the PowerPoint now. In that video, you can kind of get a sense of what it was like some days when Jeremy was out there painting and there was a crowd around, and he was such a great advocate. And a lot of people just ended up coming out to the forest to watch him paint, which is really cool. I didn't expect that, but we'll talk more about that later. So first, I just want to kind of go back to the beginning of the blockades. So on that bottom right is Fairy Creek watershed, last intact old growth valley on southern Vancouver Island. And some of the blockades are protecting what lies within that valley. Right at the very top, there's sort of a kilometer of road building that's approved. But many of the, most of the camps are protecting areas that are in the contiguous forest. So I think it would still be called sort of the watershed, but not right in the valley. That photo on top is just the very first night. I think it was August 10th of last year. So we're slowly creeping towards the 1-year anniversary, which is amazing. Just up on the ridge. And then a great picture of Bill just welcoming everybody from the top of the ridge camp. So yeah, you can see there's the Fairy Creek rainforest. And so the picture on the right, the gray area is the deferral that happened. which is kind of a joke. I mean, they could easily just postpone making that one little road for a couple of years without feeling it at all, because there's so much other, well, not so much, but there's other areas of old growth that can easily log in. So yeah, and the other map there, I'm not going to look at it for too long, but it just shows you there's some areas that are protected, some that are old growth management areas, which are protected for now, but sometimes if they give permanent protection to another area, they will just open up an OGMA area for old growth logging. So that light colored area is protected. And you can see where roads are approved, and some cutting has been happening at like the 2000 road and different places like that. And so you can see, so Eden Camp is on the left, the little star there. There's the Gordon River Road and Edinburgh, Maine. So, you know, if you walk along there, you'd see Big Lonely Doug, and then the next picture kind of shows you where the grove is. You can just see it all in relation to sort of HQ that's at the bottom right there, which right now is the only camp that you can drive into because the RCMP have blocked them off. So Kyle made this awesome map, by the way. Shout out to Kyle. You can see, yeah, Big Lonely Doug and then Eden Grove, and then just past that is we call Eden South, and that's where there's an approved road. So there's no application for a cut block for Eden Grove, but it's unprotected. So there's really nothing protecting it except the camp when it was there, and now there's no camp. So anyways, but first what would happen if industry wanted to encroach in the area is they would build that road in Eden South. And you can see in the kind of pink areas, those are other approved cut blocks, I believe. And so, yeah, I thought I'd start with this, just like an artist rendition of the camp. There is an artist that came up, Emma Fitzgerald, and she did some sketching of the camp. And there's just some amazing artistry that's gone into the camp itself. And like the kitchen was incredible, you know, all sort of hand built and really incredible detail. There's a Sasquatch there for some random reason, and yeah, wall tent, and then this awesome stone staircase that went down to a bathtub that had there was a wood fired hot water tank, and just incredible. Every time I go there, there's some new ingenious system set up, and I can't talk about it too much because it's going to make me cry. I love it. So here's the white tent is the studio tent, and that tent has a history. It was, I think it was like commissioned, sort of handmade or something, back in the Clayoquot Sound blockade era. So it was part of that whole blockade movement. And after those blockades came down, it got rolled up, packed into storage. 30 years later, it's hard to believe that was 30 years ago. I was out there at Clayoquot Sound, and then this tent comes out, and it was in great shape. The fly was not in great shape, so we had various tarp adventures, but it was kind of leaky and quirky, but really cool space. And then probably like a couple of weeks before the camp got raided, I bought that sort of yellow tent, and there's a lot of work to assemble, and then Kyle had to disassemble it by himself in the last minute to take it down. So yeah, it's a good little tent, little wood stove, and now the tent exists at HQ, and it's getting used as like a media tent. So mostly, in terms of folks really staying on site for long chunks of time, Jeremy and Kyle kind of had the most time out there and made the most use of the actual studio, but also their vehicles, sleeping in them and stuff. So, just a view of, going into the Grove. The boardwalks are incredible. The team that worked on the boardwalks, they also made boardwalks in the Walbrand, the unprotected section of Walbrand Valley, just using blowdown cedar that's on site. And they've just put so much care and attention into it. Leading down into the grove, there's this beautiful, I don't know if it's like limestone or what, beautiful white rock that's been, yeah, carefully laid down. So yeah, the boardwalk is to protect the roots and to just make it more accessible for folks. And the Eden Grove itself is, I think, 35 hectares, so it's fairly small, but really, really special place. And sorry, these photos aren't amazing, but they're just kind of what I had. Some are better than others. Yeah, big ancient cedars, spruce, hemlock. And yeah, Jeremy is the first artist. So Jeremy, this is your most recent painting of the grandmother tree. Do you want to talk for 5 minutes or so about your experience? And it's like hard to encapsulate within 5 minutes, but I just have a couple of images of your paintings. I don't have all of them. Jeremy was the first person that I approached with this idea. I'd been mulling over the idea of an artist in residence program for a few months. And then it wasn't until the camps really were established and really running smoothly, and it just seemed like this is a really solid thing. Like I could have a tent out there and there'd be people to care for it and people to kind of orient the artists, and like I could just see it all working, you know, and see the support for the movement growing. And of course I was familiar with Jeremy's work, and I met Jeremy in the Walbrand at I can't remember if it was the Convergence or a group of artists that went out. Anyways, oh yeah, there's a coalition of artists for the Walbrand. We had a little show. I think it was part of that. So yeah, went and had a little studio visit with Jeremy. And of course, as soon as I mentioned it, it was a big yes, and just such a natural fit. And Jeremy's just brought so much to the program, including, yeah, like there's times when Maclean's magazine stumbles along and she's in there, and you know, that video, I think because the Grove was so accessible and people found out that he was in there and painting, and so there's been quite a few opportunities to get his work out there, which has been fantastic. Jeremy, I'll let you speak about your work.
Thank you, Jessie. I'm sitting in my studio, and I remember this is where we were back in January or something like that, talking about heading out there and sort of being the guinea pig artist to start it all out.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first showed up, you and I guess I shouldn't mention names, but you and I can't remember what they call her. We're setting up. Pardon?
Snarky Pants is her camp name, and I think she might even be with us right now. But
Snarky Pants? Okay, cool. I saw Snarky Pants the other day at HQ in the tent. So I was like, hey, that's my studio.
Yeah.
What a legacy that tent has. Anyways, when I showed up, there were people from the Eden Grove blockade who were just so willing and keen to help me set up. And young woman, Chickweed, wielding a chainsaw, helping me to make the poles and rigging it all up and setting up the stove and learning how to use an awl to cut the hole for the chimney and stuff like that. Anyways, it was really wonderful because, you know, people from the blockade would haul boxes of wood up for me to stay warm, because at the beginning, late February, early March, there were nights when it would snow and hail. And so it was really wonderful to have that warm space to go to. It started off, I showed up with a big canvas thinking I should make a big painting up here and stay for like a week or longer. I wasn't sure how long it would take me, so I put this large canvas in the van and decided pretty quickly on arrival that what I needed to do was to make a portrait of one of these beautiful trees, because I was so astounded and moved by their personality that it made sense to, thinking of it as a person, thinking of this creature as a person, not just an inert tree, not just a column of wood, but as a person, and to engage with it in the conversational kind of process of painting a portrait from life. And you're right, a lot of people really responded to that process. It was fortunate for me that, if I got in the forest, in the grove early in the morning, I could probably spend the entire day without seeing a person. But then, if it was a weekend or something like that, more people would come out to see Big Lonely Doug, and then of course to see Eden Grove. And they would come down to experience the forest, and then boom, there's a painter here. And I think that people were really moved by that, seeing somebody working that way, sometimes fairly deep into in the grove. And so, yeah, sure enough, a mutual friend of ours, a forest protector, was escorting a reporter from the Globe and Mail, and he took some pictures, and that was pretty amazing. And then Jeremy with River Voice Productions came down. He really wanted to film something about it, and his daughter, he came with his whole family, his wife and 2 daughters. And his youngest daughter, she was giving me all kinds of advice about what to include into the painting. And it was very good advice, but she said, why don't you paint a rainbow? And I was like, well, I can't paint a rainbow because I don't see a rainbow, and I can only paint the stuff that I see. And then she said, well, why don't you paint these pink flowers? And she held up salmonberry flowers. No, the pink ones. Anyways, the ones that the hummingbirds were going crazy over at the time. And I was like, well, see, now I can see that. So I held the little pink flower, and there wasn't one of those pink flower bushes in the view, but I was able to make these little pink flowers in there. And so she was able to participate in the painting that way. And that's the whole point of doing a painting from life and on location, is for the place to participate in the making of the work. And of course, the place being the weather, including hail and rain and sun, and then also other things like birds and other critters and mosquitoes and black flies. Holy black flies. When they arrived in May, it was a game changer. I ended up buying a net to cover my head, and realized how much I appreciated mosquitoes instead of black flies. And then also, the people who would come to visit and come through, and they would express their feelings about the place, and they would want to discuss it. And I found myself in a really great situation to be able to share what little I knew, or what I did know about the forest and about the movement. And it was, I think it was really useful and helpful, not only to them, but to me and the movement. So it felt like it was really indicative of how important artists can be in the overall movement and the campaign to raise awareness. Of course, I was there for so much time because these paintings would take 5 to 8 or 10 days each to do, which is wake up in the morning, carry all my gear down there, spend the day, make the painting, and carry all the gear back out, including the painting, drive back down that crazy road. And that studio tent was a great place, was perfect for me to put the painting in overnight to dry off and stuff like that, because sometimes it would get really wet from rain. And also to, cook and reflect on the painting and think about what I was going to do the next day. But yeah, that was a really great experience. And I just sitting here in the studio and recalling that first meeting that you and I had, and how exciting it was to head out there, and just there was no alternative, there was no option. I was at this place where I had to go and do it, and I was really grateful to have met you here to proceed with it and to be the guinea pig. And we'll see where it goes from here. It's not over yet.
Yeah, you were the guinea pig with the tent and all of that, and just figuring out the structure of it, and Yeah, I was sort of expecting to have these long chunks of time that artists would be, on the site for, and that's like, well, maybe I can, I have to cap it at a certain point because that was going to be artists staying there, 2 weeks at a time or something like that. But it was really kind of, yeah, Jeremy and Kyle sort of had the most availability, and then other folks, came up for chunks of time when they could as well, and still, yeah, contributed a lot. Everybody that contributed, I was just so grateful for, and that everybody was willing to drive out, drive into this blockade situation. There's so many complex things going on. It's protection of these places is not unanimous amongst, Apache, as we know. So there's all sorts of complexities to kind of think through and feel through and learn about and make relationships, with people and build your own kind of relationship with the place. I'm just noticing that some of my pictures are a little bit not totally flush. I was doing it on an incredibly small screen, so sorry if the slides aren't laid out beautifully. It's incredible that Jeremy's painting can fit inside that van, and that van can go up this super steep, rocky, insane curve of the road that most vehicles couldn't. It's quite a sight to see. There's an incredible video that was made early on of sort of a day in the life of Jeremy finishing a painting up there that didn't have time to include, but search for it. Yeah, some great details of this brushwork. So and then along came Kyle. So I had to include the picture of Jeremy and Kyle going fishing with their couch and sweaters, and it's just so cute. And yeah, Kyle and his truck that could get up the hill as well, and yeah, just such a different approach to making a painting. I don't want to, yeah, Kyle, you're the one to speak about your work. I'm super grateful for everything that you've contributed. I think there's, I might have to just sort of interrupt you, or we might have to take turns speaking through your thing, because I've included a whole kind of arc of photos in this section that includes stuff about camp. And so it's going to kind of jump around in the timeline, I think, this presentation, because Kyle became very involved with the camp and with some of the actions that were happening there, and then later as a journalist, which was amazing. And he was there to witness when the camp was raided and destroyed, and has done some incredible writing about it that I think we'll see at some point in the future. And just yeah, so grateful for all of your efforts and your reflections. So let me know, yeah, you haven't seen these slides, so you don't know what the next one contains, but sort of this, and then a few of your paintings, and then stuff about camp. So I'll just roll with this here if you want to talk about your work.
Okay, thank you, Jessie. I think I'm unmuted. Does
Yeah.
it work? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity that I've had over the last several months to be out there for so many different reasons, that I'm not going to be able to talk about them all in 5 minutes. So I'll give you kind of the Coles Notes version, maybe. I think of myself as a guest and student at all times when I'm documenting the land. And for me, that's mostly through painting. So to have the opportunity to go there with the invitation of Bill Jones and the rest of the people with the Rainforest Flying Squad who were making the blockades there, I guess I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'd been to other residencies, and I'd been a part of those communities, and was really grateful for my time focusing on an art residency. But now I'm at a blockade, and that was a whole different proposition, because now I'm also a guest in the home, really, of these people who who had set up the Eden Grove camp, Indigenous people and settlers alike working together to build this community with a common goal of protecting those trees. And I guess I maybe the biggest takeaway that I have so far, because I'm very much so still in it, you know, like the work is actively happening right now. Even though I'm not present there, it still is happening. And I think that the first thing that seemed really important to me was that, like, yes, I came here to paint the trees and use painting as a method to try and help save those trees, but it was the people that had me coming back almost instantly. The relationships that I built with people at camp right away leaked themselves into the painting. And in a painting like this is the first painting, large painting that I made out there. They became collaborations with the forest protectors there, where I would like kind of have the bones of a painting, maybe a composition laid out, and then I would go and be like, okay, well, like this one feels like it needs a figure in it. What's the figure doing? Why are they doing it? Who is that figure? Do you want to be that figure? Do you want to like pose for that? You know, and then that grew over the course of a few paintings, and I just feel so grateful for the trust that those people put in me to allow them to document, photograph them, and paint them, and that inevitably led to quite a bigger role in some things around camp than maybe I necessarily expected to have, that kind of coexisted with painting. And sorry, it's hard stuff to talk about. It's hard to figure out how to talk about all this still, because it's still really present. But I think eventually that led to, if you still have more paintings, that's cool. You can keep
so there's
painting.
the awesome stump. So this, yeah, you can see there's Big Lonely Dead and this stump. There's a picture later of the stump will reappear in the slideshow later. But I don't think he ever fell in that hole in the center, Kyle. He stayed.
I didn't fall in the hole, no.
Good.
But I think like that stump though, just while we're flipping past stumps, like I think it's important for me to think of myself as documenting more than just what I see, but also when I sense when I'm out painting the land, especially land in which I'm thinking of myself as like a guest. How do I interpret that land in the most effective way? And sitting on that stump was like a whole different sensorial experience, to like feel like the energy of several hundreds years, maybe over 1,000 years of that tree growing, and then for it to be cut, and then all of a sudden now it's a platform for me to sit and paint this lone tree standing in a grove. I think that that's the type of stuff that I'm trying to record in my paintings when I'm worried about the land, kind of in concert with what's happening with the forest protectors, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's the painting from that particular spot. And I think you said there was like thunder and lightning your first night.
Yeah.
There. So yeah, that kind of came through.
Yeah, the first night that I was there was thunder and lightning. It took me, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks before I started to make that painting too. Like when you get there, it's like Doug is such an odd thing, you know, to see this lonely tree in the middle of a clear cut. It's like just visually strange and obviously unnatural and all that stuff. And it took me a long time to even begin to feel like I could approach making a painting of that tree. I had to have like a longer relationship with it. So it felt fitting to reference something in the painting that happened on the first night when it actually came time to painting it.
One of the last ones.
Yeah, that's the painting that Jeremy and I worked on together. Or at least we worked on our own paintings together for safety, because one of the things that maybe you underestimate out there, like there's so many others like RCMP helicopters, and there's like tons of people, and there's like a threat of the trees being cut, and there's all these things that seem like danger, and sometimes maybe it's easy to overlook that there's also like cougars and bears and stuff like that too that you got to watch out for. So Jeremy and I went into this spot on the north side of the road across from Eden South, where the plan was to paint facing opposite directions so we could be the eyes in the back of each other's heads for cougar watch.
Perfect. And yeah, there's a little painter inside the painting. I can't remember if I included a little. Oh yeah, there we go. There's the artist and the clear cut. Okay, here's the story.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that you had all these images.
Is that
Jessie.
okay?
That's okay. It's just fine. It's just fine.
I can tell it if you want, but if you're prepared, you were there. I mean, I don't know where I was there, but I think I was up by the camp near the road or something, because I didn't even know any of this was happening until after it happened.
Yeah. I think like these are exactly the type of things that like I'm so grateful for the residency opportunity for, is because I haven't made a painting of this night yet, but it's like stewing, you know, like there's so many things that were recorded that night, and like notes and obviously photographs and conversations and further conversations and stuff like that. It's all like bubbling up still, and eventually will become a painting. But the bus was a really important thing for a lot of people there. A lot of different people lived in the bus. The bus was kind of an iconic thing that lived near the kitchen right at the base of the bridge. And then it also became kind of the core of the hard blockade tactic plan for how Eden Grove was supposed to be protected, which, as you can see in the bottom right there, meant that it got flipped. We dragged it across the bridge in the middle of the night using headlamps to light up the bridge, and flipped it. And maybe you want to share more than that, Jessie, but that's maybe all that I.
I'm jumping right to the tip. So yeah, that was there's some incredible things on the bridge, and I didn't really have the time to show some of the other things. Some of the I don't know how to go back, otherwise I would do that right now. I feel like I just jumped too quickly to this. There's a whole other set of stories, but yeah, there's some other tactics that Kyle, I don't know if you want to talk about any of the stuff on the truck or whatever, but yeah, like there's some great collaborations that were happening with actually making some of these hard blocks, like adding some artistry to them. And there was a crazy day. Me and Kyle were up at camp, and we were told, okay, in 2 hours we're making the hard blockade. That was the day we had to take the tent down. And there's actually an awesome video, I wish I had time to put it in here, of Kyle, like, yeah, packing up his paintings, and we quickly took the tent down, drove across the bridge, and that night, yeah, I think it was that night or the next night, the bus got dragged across, and then it was just this feeling like the RCMP can come, you know, any moment here, any day. And so it was like, you know, if you don't want to be arrested, you might want to leave. We didn't really know how things were going to roll, because things that happened in KQs where it was just like, okay, there's the RCMP line, they come in and they arrest everybody who's there. But every scenario, every camp was a bit different. So I think there had been this plan hatched to do some kind of painting on the roof of the bus, and then it ended up being a pretty quick thing where it was like the last little flourish before we kind of took off, thinking that, okay, I guess we got to get out of here. And yeah, Kyle painted that last stand with the help of a couple of folks, hey?
Yeah, I think there was like a few things there that like served to me as real signifiers of like moments where the residency overlapped with the blockade in a way that each other kind of boosted the other one up. Like they made each other stronger. And I'd gotten a text message from the satellite phone that said they needed help with the secret artist project. And I didn't know what that meant. And then all of a sudden I'm painting the roof of the bus, and I could see the way that kind of brought it. It was like something that brought people together. Just the bus is like this thing, this object that was there that people had lived in, and then having this moment where a bunch of people could stand around and kind of put their energy into making this painting that in some way signified what that camp was about, was a really potent thing, you know, that's really stuck in my mind. And then when I knew that I knew the bus was gone, I knew that they'd taken the bus, and I watched them take the bus. And then I knew that some people came and took back the bridge, and that they're having a really hard time, and that the tactical RCMP Green Army men were really aggressive and physical with them. And yeah, I just wanted to bring the bus back. So I made a big painting of the bus.
I love it. I was so overwhelmed to see this banner painting of the bus. I just love it as like just this sort of action and symbol of resistance, and kind of taking back the space and just sort of saying, yeah, we're here, and reaffirming the presence there. And yeah, it's just, yeah, I can only imagine what the RCMP thought as they cut it down. Like there's artists here doing stuff. Like, this is weird. You know, what's going on here? I love it. There's a quote, I don't even know who said this, but something about creativity confounds authority. And I think that's true. So yeah, so I think somebody was arrested in that position. Hey, that's not the person that was actually arrested in that hard block, but that happened. That was sort of a performance and installation of the thing that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I can't remember what I did next. Aha, Mike. So Mike came out. I think Heather came out first, but I wanted to transition to these photos of the bridge that Mike took, and bring Mike into the conversation here, because yeah, Mike and I had some experiences on the bridge too, taking photos when a helicopter came circling, and I didn't know anybody was. I decided I was the only one on the bridge, and the helicopter was circling and circling, and I was just like, I didn't know what to do with myself. It was weird, so I decided to move the helicopter, and then Mike comes around the corner. So apparently that.
No judgment, zero judgment,
Yep.
Jessie. It was all good.
I wasn't the only one that had done that.
No.
But yeah, so yeah, it's kind of mad dash to take these photos. So it's sort of a before and after. I just had to put these side by side. They're a few weeks apart. But wow, they're both super impactful. And yeah, do you want to just take it away for a few minutes, Mike?
Sure. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Jessie, and thank you for to everybody that's organized this event tonight, and you know, having the opportunity to speak with you know, such a dedicated group of creative people. You know, it's really heartwarming to be in you know, in this group. So I really do appreciate the opportunity. I guess I'll give you just a little bit of just a teeny backstory here. I have always, since I was a little boy, probably three or 4 years old, I've had you know, an immense appreciation for the natural world and the out of doors, and me myself being in them. My parents divorced when I was quite young, and my mom raised me as a single mother. And one of the things that we did quite often through the spring, summer, and fall, because we didn't have much money, but we had a car and gas was cheap back. Apparently, gas was cheap back in the early 80s. So we would drive out to the mountains. I was from Southern Alberta, a small town called Lethbridge. And we would drive out to the mountains together, and we would just go out there and learn about those places. And I really, you know, I cannot thank her enough for instilling this appreciation and deep profound respect for the natural world and in all of its forms, right? So I have become a father in the last about 10 years ago, and I'm obviously sitting in my son's room right now. This is his bookshelf behind me. And I'm trying to pay that forward, you know, and trying to instill that same amount of respect and love. There's no other word for it in my vocabulary, anyways, for these wild places. So yeah, this particular day, and I had gone up to Eden Grove a number of times before this particular image was made. I took a trip with Angus, my son, and my partner Laura, and our dog Charlie Brown. We all went down into the forest when Jeremy was painting back in maybe March, February, March, maybe something like that. And you know, it was a pretty amazing experience for all of us. And then subsequent trips that I took out, I went out by myself. And you know, it was more of a logistics thing than anything. And the way that I have been working with this project is, I guess, similar in a certain way to what Jeremy, and looking at the size of Kyle's paintings as well. You know, I'm predominantly a photographic artist, but to make these images, I was working with a 8 by 10 inch field camera. So this big old wooden contraption, and it's heavy and slow and cumbersome. And I just love it. I love working this way because it encourages conversations with people. And that's one of the things that I find most compelling about being an artist is, you know, there's a certain amount of what I do. I work sometimes at the college, sometimes at the university, and in the educational realm. But I find that more often than not, I'm learning as much as anything, and I hope that is always continues to be the case. So on this particular day, I tried to get a message out to Jessie that I was coming up, and you know, we've been hearing a little bits on the news about the police possibly moving up in that direction, but there wasn't a whole lot of concrete information about that happening. So on these day trips, I leave Victoria pretty early, maybe 5 o'clock or 5:30, something like that. And I drive, and I arrived at camp, and my car will not make it up that road. Like, there's just no way. So what I do is I load my gear into my son's wagon. He has this really sort of heavy duty garden wagon with, you know, big pneumatic wheels. And I load up my 50 or 60 pounds worth of camera gear and a lunch and into the wagon, and I would walk up from the main road. And so I did that this morning. I loaded up and I got to the gate, and the defenders that met me there, I said, hey, and you know, they obviously had recognized me from previous trips, and they said, hey, you know, did you see the RCMP on the way up? How did you get here? And I said, oh, I just drove. There was nothing there. And they said, oh, well, we're expecting them today. And I was like, wow, my timing is impeccable. So, and at that point, Jessie was just happened to be walking up the road towards me, and I said, hey, Jessie, and you were like, oh, you're here.
Yeah.
Wow, Mike, you're here. And I said, yeah, I picked a pretty good day to come up, didn't I? So I saw, you know, some of the actions that were or the after effects of the actions that were depicted in the photographs, and what Kyle and Jessie were talking about that happened that evening. I just happened to show up hoping to get into the Grove to make a large format photograph that morning. And there were, the situation had changed. So I left for a while and kind of collected my thoughts and to be honest, just sort of like began the thinking process of how I wanted to proceed. And I came back in the afternoon, and Jessie and I went out on the bridge together, and I made the photograph on the left through this 3-color additive process where you shoot black. It's shot on black and white film with different colored filters on the lens, and then in post-production you actually merge the images together, and it creates a full color composite image that looks similar to if I were to just be shooting on color film or with a digital camera. But there's something a little bit different, and the difference that happens is because of the passage of time. And everything that is static in the scene, the trees, the bridge, the bus, the yellow sleeping bag, the blue tote, all of that stuff registers as normal, but where the light falls differently over the course of those 3 different exposures, then you get a sort of a rainbowing or a different sort of visual phenomenon that I was really attracted to. So, but when I made this picture, I was, as Jessie was suggesting, the police helicopter was flying and doing, you know, sort of circuits around us. And for those that haven't stood on this bridge, I think it's about 150 feet down to the Gordon River below. You feel fairly exposed out there. So I didn't actually wait that long between exposures, and therefore the image that I got, it looks very similar to a regular color photograph. But I was seeing the paintings, and I'm really happy to be able to hear Kyle speak about his work, and I've really admired what he's done out there in the time that he's had. And in particular, I was like, I don't even know this guy, but I'm gonna kind of work with the image and create an homage to one of my fellow artists working in this place. And of course, you know, it is his direct work that is on the top. That mural is his on top of the bus. So I thought, what I want to do is try to replicate as best as I can through this process, the same color palette, and make it look similar to a painting that he had done. So that's where the colors get kind of wonky on the left image. And then on the right is the day about 2-3 weeks ago now, where I hiked in from the bottom of the road about 8 or 9 kilometers up, and I had the place all to myself. And of course, the bus was gone, and it was basically the remains of the camp, and I documented them, and then I made it into all the way up to Eden Grove, and I had the forest on a Saturday completely to myself, and that was a truly remarkable, heartbreaking, and fantastic day as well. So.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed that you did the 3 hours each way. Yeah, we're able to document the state of things at that point. And Mike sent me some photos of just sort of the detritus that was sort of left behind, and it's pretty moving and, you know, sad to see, but I want to show more of your work. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a lot more indicative, or reflects that 3-color process that I'm talking about, where like it looks, sort of realistic, but there's also another, there's something else going on there. And I think that in terms of photography, I'm always interested in people's relationship to the medium, because it's ubiquitous. I mean, photographic images are like air, right? We all make them probably on a daily basis, and I'm interested in if there are ways that I can engage with the medium, engage with it on a process level that sort of starts to reflect what it actually is, and I get most excited, I guess, when it begins to, you push it to the point where it almost is breaking down, and that's where I think that this process kind of highlights it. And when these images are printed, hopefully you'll be able to kind of see what it is that I'm talking about. But the way that the light falls on those ferns or the staircase, or those really lovely all of those lovely trees out there, it looks the way that it does to our eye, but there's something else going on there. And ultimately for me, that's what it's about, is stopping, having people slow down and stop and look at it a little bit closer, and maybe think a little bit harder about what it is that they're actually seeing. So the boardwalk, and I know that it's something that a lot of us have remarked upon, the work and the care and the love that goes into the making of those structures out there. And I can't echo that sentiment any louder. I really do appreciate how these people come together and make these structures that encourage people to come out and to experience them, to experience this place. And I was Jessie and I were together. We went out to the Walbrin together about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. And there was some of the structures that had been built out there just kind of blew me away. And the conversations that I was having with people that were kind of instrumental in the making of them, they said, yeah, in a lot of instances, this is what helps protect these places. It's the forest. You reconfigure it in a way that encourages people to come in and experience it for themselves. They go home and they talk to their kids, they talk to their friends, they talk to their mother in New Brunswick or whatever. And it just opens up a whole nother level of understanding. And with understanding, hopefully comes appreciation and ultimately protection of these spaces. So I was really drawn to the structures and how they can kind of encourage that dialogue, that human dialogue, in pretty profound ways.
Mm-hmm. I hope I already had sort of said we're definitely going past our time, and I just hope folks can stick with us because we still have more artists, and there's so much to share. Okay, so there's I think a couple more photos from you, Mike. The tent, and this is where Charlie Brown comes back in again. It took me a while actually looking at this photo before I pieced it together and could actually see the dog. So I hope you can see it. There's like a yellow, a red, and a blue ghostly image of dog. So I think there's this and the waterfall, and maybe one more. So is there anything you want to quickly comment about?
Yeah,
that?
this is just I think that you explained the history of the tent very, very eloquently, and its importance in the big story of what it means to want to protect these places. And as soon as you had mentioned that, I was like, oh wow, it's an artifact, and then when I saw it, I was like, oh man, like I need to document, I need to make a document of that structure in that place. And now in retrospect, I'm really glad that I did on that particular day, because as we now know, it's no longer standing in that space. I'm really happy to hear that it is elsewhere. And yeah, there's 3 Charlie Browns in there.
Mm-hmm.
So
awesome. Yeah, I'm glad for that photo as well. Oh, sorry, this is the way the slideshow goes because I can't remember. I don't have my little preview on the left, so I feel like I'm just abruptly ending people's little sections there without being able to say thank you so much. Thank you to all of the artists that have participated. It's just been so humbling and amazing, and just so beyond what I imagined at the outset. And there's more to come. And so Heather, I think, came before, a little bit before Mike. And I learned about Heather's work through Kyle. And just as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh God, yes, I have to reach out to this artist. You know, she spends, you know, a lot of her practice is sort of documenting social movements and, you know, archival images of collective actions by people, you know, communal experimentations and things like that. And so I thought this is perfect to have someone that's also, you know, interested in documenting the human aspect as well as the forest, and to just give a sense of what the community there is like, and what people are involved with, and some of the structures, and to just have you engage with the camp in that way through your artwork as well. And we've just produced some really beautiful work out of it. So thank you so much. And yeah,
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think there's about 4 images, so that will be your.
Okay, I'm very conscious of people's Zoom attention span, because after teaching online for a year, it's like there's only so much you can do. So thank you for everyone for being here, and then also just everyone who, you know, your work, Jessie, but the other artists' work, and it was very inspiring to hear, you know, just to hear it in this way. I guess for me, you know, I think my relationship to the camp, and still is, like, I'm still kind of gathering images. I feel very much almost, because most of my work has been about documenting history or historical movements. And so for the, like, the presentness of these things happening, kind of like to echo what Kyle was saying, is like, it's almost hard to fully document what's going on, because you want to sort of absorb and digest the experience of these like rapid changes. And then also the growth of the movement is so amazing and powerful, but then also just the forms that it takes, like the actions that people are actually physically doing. I've been really just enamored by the documentation that's been coming out recently. So I'm still kind of gathering images, but I'm very much interested in, you know, these kind of collective shapes, collective forms of people. So I work from photos, and kind of went up there a couple times with my partner and just tried to gather images to work from in my studio in Nanaimo, and just kind of thinking about what it is that these people are doing here. And they're like having a conversation in the forest, you know. And I think that the stewardship and the commitment to the activist tradition, like the long held tradition, is really something that I find beautiful and remarkable. And so those are the types of images that I wanted to recreate through drawing. But yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I love, like, if people wanted to ask questions, I'm also conscious of time, for the fact that we should maybe have time for questions.
Yeah, I'll just say this is every night at 7 o'clock, or sort of the time varied, but there'd be meetings to plan for the next day and to just come together. So this is one of those meetings, I think. And yeah, one of the banners.
Yeah, and I have all of these images of banners and little signs that kind of progressed up the trail, and I've been working on little drawings here and there, but I'm always like, it's not good enough. It's, you know, and it's been interesting because actually looking at Mike's work, at like the photographic evidence, I don't know, drawing can offer something, but there's also this kind of the idea of, I guess I'm having a hard time almost like I'm just like, it's just so sad what's going on. So it's difficult to fully know what to do with all of the images. You know, it's like they sort of just like accumulate. But especially the kinds of language and verbs that people were using, I think that's something that I just feel like I've been kind of gathering, and when something kind of hits me, I would try to pay attention to it.
Yeah, I think it like in this case does bring a lot more than just a photo. Like you're kind of memorializing the moment, and you're raising, you know, that banner to an artwork in a whole other way, and just done a beautiful job with it. And yeah, it definitely resonates Okay, there's a couple more images, I think. Okay, there's the bus again. So it's like third artist to document the bus.
Yeah, I was also really struck by the people who I met who were living in it, and just the people. I mean, I'm kind of reiterating the fact that the people at camp were, you know, they're just such amazing. They really are defending something. So I really admire their work. And so I guess part of my interest is I would love to see Mike's photos of the sort of like leftover elements, or like these ideas of, because to me that's like, so there's something so powerful there about like the human interaction with these spaces, something that I was actually kind of like challenged by when I was on site. Like I was like, I don't want to add any garbage or do it, you know. I felt very conscious of my own footprint there, and as a guest and as a settler. And so I think that those are the types of things that I hope I can kind of like embed in the drawings, but challenging things to address.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And this image actually came about. I have a friend that was also at River Camp, and he was helping to build the boardwalk there. But I was so struck by the boardwalk that I had to somehow, I borrowed his image. His name's Red for camp name.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the movement in that image, and just that feeling of collaboration. It's wonderful. Okay, so I think it's going to switch to Connie. Maybe if we all just think this is going to go until 9, is that okay? Or what do we need to do in terms of time? There's like a 30-second animation of work of Connie's, and then some images, and then Valerie is with us, and I have a few images from her, and then Paul and Randy are not here, but I have just a few images of their art, and I can just like speak super briefly about what they have done or going to do. Is that okay, or do we need to change anything about our plans?
I think that's great, Jessie.
Okay.
Here we are. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think we're in it. I'm absorbed. I'm just fascinated by, I've seen all this artwork before, but it's so nice to just like kind of look at it and hear from artists and take it in a different way. So I'm kind of relishing in it. So I'm going to just go back to my computer here for a sec, and I guess actually no, I'm going to go back to the slideshow and then get to Connie's animation in a minute. So Connie did this wonderful community art. Connie Michelle Maury lives here in Lekwungen Territory, and she couldn't be with us. She's off grid right now, camping. And she, did a great community art project called The Mending Ground. And it was a call for people to embroider on socks, to do, darning and embroidery, sort of visible darning, and drop them off at her place. And she installed them in the forest. And some of them are just so playful and really moving. Connie has some of this work references Robin Kimmerer's writing. A lot of people have read her book recently, Braiding Sweetgrass, as well as like Suzanne Simard's work. She just produced that book called The Mother Tree. And, looking at her kind of like right relation with nature, the natural world, and this idea of like, standing for the old growth, the kind of metaphor of, I guess, our feet on the ground, but, mending that relationship and tending to it and caring for it, and how the forest also cares for us, and the kind of reciprocity in that relationship. So we'll just look through some of these images. The one on the left says, I think it says undo or undoing, and there's a hole in the toe, and she just decided to leave the hole there. And it's kind of burning, you know, when it's actually my coworker that did that one. So I know she's thinking about climate change and like, you know, what's possible to heal and what's kind of too far, and how do we, how much of our undoing can we undo, you know, at this point. The one on the right is actually done by my mother, so I guess I was choosing these a little bit, not totally objectively. It looks like it got blurred. There's some threads that hang out from behind the toe. It's a little baby sock. This is meant for me. And then there was some green threads that hung down that were to kind of represent like fresh new roots. And she sort of singed the toe. So yeah, some people embroidered words, you know, messages, and others were more just visual imagery. I actually don't know a whole lot about this part of the performance. Connie did a couple of performances in the Grove, and I think this might be the beginning of the sock animation that I'll show you in a minute. Yeah, so this is a still from the video, and so she has crocheted, I guess, a whole bunch of these little pieces of kind of moss and lichen and things like that, and it's just gorgeous. I love how they blend into the natural environment and kind of absorb her into it. So I just want to show that video. It's really quick. Uh-oh. Dang. Sorry. I actually am having a hard time with going back. Oh, maybe I can. Okay. I thought that was the video, but it looks like it's a still. I'll see if I can find it. Here we go. Yeah, I just love that piece. Just gonna get back to my slideshow here. Oh, okay. Sorry. Uh-oh. Okay, I might need help to try and remember how I did this. Shoot. Sorry, folks, if anybody has. But,
I'm not sure, Jessie, but there was something about closing it down and then starting it up again.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm back on this. It was just sort of making it full screen. I thought I just hit slideshow and it goes to the full screen option, but it's not really giving me that. option right now. And it's booted me way back to the beginning. So yeah, I don't want to just leave it like that, but I'm not sure what else I can do. So maybe I'll just roll with it like this. Because yeah, I'm not super familiar with this program, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, Connie couldn't be here. She's done some amazing work, super grateful. And yeah, so this is Randy Cook, who also, well, he was going to try and make it tonight, but I don't think he's joined. I can't see all the participants. Randy, if you're here, you can unmute yourself, but yeah, so you might not have made it in. So Randy Cook is hereditary chief Kwakwakiwak, near around Alert Bay. And I know he's been working really hard to protect the ancient forest on his territory. There's a lot of complex dynamics going on with another nation that's sort of claiming that territory as well and is involved with clear cutting. So that's, yeah, in a very challenging situation. And Randy's done some incredible projects. This whole kind of Tree of Life project that's around really honoring cedar, and you can see these are all the masks here that he has made, and he's sort of standing in this clear cut of cedar on his territory, and kind of like reclaiming that territory and that land, and talking about what it means to be a hereditary leader of, you know, of unceded territory. And I just love this image, you know, just sort of taking back his power from, you know, industry and making a statement. And Randy's been really supportive of the residency, and he's super busy. So he's, I think, just been out a couple times. And he's involved with, yeah, like I said, with some amazing projects on his own territory, bringing the artists out there. I know Paul Wald, Susan Simard, and a few, Kelly Richardson, are all going up to his territory. And so, we'll be making artwork about it. I don't really know exactly what they're going to do. I think they're sort of in the process of just kind of getting out there and having conversations and seeing what grows out of it. But I'm really excited to see what happens through those efforts. And so Randy came out, and I know he wanted to make a mask. He had told me he wanted to make a mask of a baby's face, and the idea at the time was that it would sort of hang at the entrance to the grove, and people could like put it on and take pictures with it and kind of interact with it. That, you know, hasn't happened, but he did share with me a photo of a mask, a gorgeous mask that he made. Oops. And I'm not, he didn't send me the title. This is just the other day, but I know Jeremy has seen it in his studio, and he believes it's called Grandmother Tree, which I think references Susan Simard's work and her latest book that talks about the mycelium connections in the roots under the forest, and how the trees, how the mycelium network acts like kind of a brain, nervous system in the forest to pass information and nutrients and things like that. And so Susan Simard has been, yeah, connecting with Randy and going out on the land there. So it's just a gorgeous mask. I love the movement in it and just beautiful innovation with the traditional shapes. And it's done incredible work. I can't wait to see it in person. And I believe that's like a cedar rope around it. So I wish he could be here to speak about it, but I look forward to hearing more about it. And he's been up in his territory quite a bit lately, so it's been a bit hard to connect, but I'm really excited to to have him continue to be involved in this project and to see what he does on his territory. So big shout out to Randy wherever he is right now. Thank you so much. And I know he was also wanting to really forge a relationship with Apache Gut leadership as well. Like it's been kind of hard to connect with Victor Peter and Elder Bill. They're mostly out on the land, and it's hard to get in touch with people when they're out there. And so the meeting hasn't happened yet, but I really look forward to, especially Victor Peter, to meet to Randy Cook, another hereditary chief, and talk about what it means to be trying to protect ancient forests in your territory at this time when industry is so kind of thirsty for the last scraps of it. So I look forward to seeing what relationships can grow out of that. Paul Walds joined us recently. It looks like my second slide of his did not work for some reason. Paul teaches at UVic in the visual arts department, and I first met Paul when I was curating at Touchstones Nelson, public art gallery, museum and archives in Nelson, BC. And he was doing a project through the Oxygen Art Center called Requiem for a Glacier at Jumbo Glacier, where there's a proposed ski resort. And there's actually a municipality that was created. There's no humans on it. This is, I don't like the term wilderness, but this is, huge tract of, I believe, unceded land. Snakes and it's been a while since I've been out there. I'm just sort of blanking. Tanaha territory. And so he did this project where he brought an orchestra up onto the glacier, and he composed this incredible requiem. So Paul is a visual artist, but also sort of a sound, like a composer. Works with sound and music, and makes really innovative scores using, you can basically take any kind of pattern in nature and sort of translate it into a score to make sound art and music out of it. So he's always sort of looking at the patterns of nature and also looking at like science, government documents. He's just has amazing skill of sort of weaving in all these different threads and making art out of it. That's really powerful. This slide is too bad it didn't work for some reason, but it was the image of a piece called Ice Record, where he went up north and he was sort of carving these rings in the ice and, over and over again. So it kind of and recorded it. So it was like sort of carving a record. And you think of how the ice, records changes in climate. And so I'm excited to see what Paul does. I've been helping him out a little bit with scouting out a spot because he wants to do a similar project to Requiem for a Glacier, but in Walburn Valley. And so at some point this summer, we're going to go out there and do some initial stuff. And that'll be a really big and exciting project that I'm super looking forward to seeing come to life. And for this project, Paul has been talking about doing tree rubbings of cedar trees. And he has a certain technique for doing that, and it sort of makes this massive scroll. So you really get a sense of just the dimension of these trees, and through recording, doing a rubbing that goes all the way around. So we'll see what comes out of that. And I just had to include this photo of, there's a stump again. And how many artists can you fit on a stump? There's Laura Gildner. She works as an assistant for Paul, and she was out on the trip when Paul came out to the Grove and got to meet Kyle. So next artist, Valerie Salas, who is here with us. I hope she's still with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. And so Valerie, I've got like 5 or so images of your work, and I'll just let you chat away. I'm so glad you're involved.
Thank you. I've been doing things in clear cuts since my 20s. mostly to deal, I always like to get out in the forest and want to get to the magical old groves and feel that spirit, and but I couldn't ignore the drive up and what we're seeing, and it just felt increasing all the time, watching logging trucks go by with the big old growth and just seeing the clear cuts. So, and as someone who has suffered from pretty severe depression and anxiety in my life, I can really get into doom scrolling. I can really get in being in my head at home, but always feeling these trees, always feeling the live ones and the vulnerability. I felt them being very vulnerable to industry. And then, I couldn't ignore seeing this massacre as you drive up to Renfrew and around the island. So I had to kind of figure out ways to attend to my depression, to not sink so deeply. At the same time, I was working with a lot of First Nations people and dealing with a lot of issues of grief and murdered and missing women, things like that. And then I was starting to learn about and understand more deeply the coalition between particularly how women's bodies have been treated, brutalized over the ages, and then of course the epidemic we have of murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada, also the United States, and probably elsewhere. So it kind of came all together in conversations. This work is called Touching Earth Bodies. And this came through a conversation with Lindsay Delaronde, which probably maybe many of you know. She was the City of Victoria Indigenous residence for 2 years. And so during that time, I would talk about this kind of stuff. And she was also doing photography, nude photography of women. And I said I wanted to bring a group of women to do nudes in clear cuts, to kind of see what that would look like, what it would feel like, to address sort of the murdered and missing Indigenous women and this eco side going on. So we gathered a group of BIPOC women, queer women, and we spent 4 days up island. We spent the whole entire first day and night just talking about our relationships to our bodies and our relationships to nature, and in particular, old growth forests and how we're feeling about clear cuts. And we talked about murdered and missing Indigenous women. So we kind of did a lot of ceremony and a lot of talk. And of course, there was tons of fear to get nude and go into these clear cuts for various reasons, that it would hurt possibly, that we were on some active logging roads, that cops could show up. It felt extremely vulnerable. But we talked about that vulnerability, that we had to do it for the trees because they were vulnerable. So we wanted to relate to them in that way. Interesting things happen when you start to go out there and you get naked. All of a sudden, it's like we would see vehicles, and then the minute we would get naked, nothing was around for 1 to 3 hours. The minute we would finish and put our clothes on, vehicles would show up or logging trucks would show up. So it was when Bill Jones talks about the spirit of a forest, to me, that's the realest thing. There's something that something else is protecting us out there. And the fact that when I am not there and I'm in the city or anywhere in the world, those trees and even those clear cuts are constantly somehow lodged in the surface of my consciousness, not even in my deep subconsciousness, but they're just very alive. Somehow those trees get into our souls. And I really believe there's something, even in our DNA, something is very connected, or with me anyway. And I'm realizing, obviously, with many people, and that's why there are so many impassioned people out there right now who have been doing this for a long time. So yeah, I did that work. I've only been up to Eden Grove and the blockades once. I'm unfortunately doing a contract right now that is taking all my time up, but I will be heading out there a lot in August and September to do more. I did go up with a Métis friend and we did do some nude photography, and the same thing happened as there were helicopters overhead, cop convoys going up and down. We did get stopped by 2 cops when we were in our bra and underwear. But the minute we were nude and right beside a road, nobody showed up for like an entire hour. So again, we were held. I'm not showing those images yet because she's not ready to, and I am going to be doing more photography with different women up there. So that's what these images are referring to. You can go to the next one, just showing some other work. This is I think I was doing these back in 2006 or 5 or 6. These are collages, a series I did with animals, engaging with sort of man-made things. So all of these owls are sitting on top of cut logs, axes, logging trucks. The series is called Congregations. So I titled all of them, the first word is what the man-made thing is, and the second is what a congregation of this particular animal. So this piece is called Deadwood Parliament, a parliament of owls. So you can go to the next slide. I think there's a close-up of those little critters and some of these things they're on. And just for the Parents for Climate Change, the next image, not to do with logging, but most of my work does deal with political and environmental and social cultural issues. So this is another one. It's called Magnified Aurora. So that's a magnified at the bottom, which, you know, when you hold it to the sun, it can start a fire. So there's a flame being started under this Inukshuk of polar bears. So, you know, speaking about climate change. This is a second rendition. I did the first and it was actually gifted, it was bought by the Yukon First Nations Association, and then went to a climate change convention in Sweden, and they gifted this first edition to Al Gore, which was interesting.
And I own the second one.
And Jessie bought the second. I remade it and Jessie bought the second one, which is cool. But in any case, so I don't want to go on too long. We're going late, but that's what I'm just excited to get back up there. And again, back to the kind of anxiety and depression stuff and how we can get locked in our heads, in our homes and on screens. And I still do it. I can get really afraid. When I started seeing what was going on at the blockades, I was like afraid of all the various things that could possibly happen. But again, when the minute I got there and we were at Eden Grove and the community, I mean, it's just gone. It's just all that fear is gone. And all of a sudden there's just this connection. And I feel like it's not just the people making the connection. Somehow all those trees, even the clear cuts right beside those original forests, they're holding us. They're motivating us. There's something beyond words and beyond art and beyond action that is connecting us all. So I do this work to get out of the news and get out of my head and get out of my fears. And when you arrive even to the most devastated places, that connection, it's instant and it's powerful, even if you're sitting and meditating. So yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Valerie. I could speak really quickly to the last artist, Donna Mueller, who's not here, but she is a photographer. She was doing a whole series around climate change and documenting melting glaciers, some that were wrapped in this white fabric to try and reflect the sunlight. And during COVID, she ended up getting kind of stuck in Victoria because her daughter lives here. COVID struck and she just pivoted and is now making work about old growth. And she's also working as a photojournalist. So she's been busy with the photojournalist stuff. This is some work, some initial kind of research kind of images that she did in Avatar Grove. And she also has been looking a lot at Suzanne Simard's work and the, you know, the networks sort of under the roots. And so she was really fascinated by the roots and how everything is connected under the forest floor. and the idea is that she's gonna do some, photos in Eden Grove, and I think she still will be able to. So I look forward to that. She's also Métis, and yeah, she was living in Switzerland when she was doing this, the climate change photography, but she's here now. And so the other slides at the end aren't super important, but just some poetry that was painted on the bridge last time I was at Eden. Oops, geez. And then, yeah, Kyle sent me some images of the kind of resurrection of the camp, another little kitchen. These images brought me so much hope seeing this. But yeah, the land defenders that were there got pretty brutally, attacked and intimidated, and they're mostly Indigenous youth. And of course, we all know that they get treated much rougher, and just had some scary things happen. I think that's partly why, yeah, there's not a whole lot of land defense presence happening at Eden right now, but also industry has not showed up from what we know. So that's sort of current situation. And just the Grove still stands and it's still beautiful. And if you want to hike for 3 hours, you can get there. So I'm just going to close down the slideshow. We can go back to, oh, Mike. Oh, Mike's with us again. Here we go. Mike. Yeah, so I don't know, do we have, time for some questions and discussion?
It doesn't look like anybody has any questions. Unless there's anybody who wants to just shout them out. Nobody has put anything into the chat. It was all pretty, there's a lot of information in there and a lot of things to think about. So I'm sure people are processing as well.
I guess I could just say that it's looking possible that we might have a show. I haven't even talked to some of the artists about this yet, but possibly a little pop-up show in like late August, early September. Maybe I shouldn't even be talking about that right now. But then I'm also talking to some other galleries about showing next year sometime. So there might be sort of a short range pop-up to kind of capture, to share, the work that's been made while this movement is really still on fire. And I mean, it still will be on fire in a year, I'm sure, in a different way. Hopefully we'll be celebrating protection of some of these places. Hopefully in August, September, we'll be celebrating protection of some of these places. But yeah, really looking forward to COVID is sort of waning, and I feel like the public, we can actually get together and see some of this work and, in person more easily and gather and maybe have some live music and have, it's just can't wait for us all to be in a different phase of the pandemic and actually get to connect. And I think it's gonna, open things up for everybody.
Hey, Jessie, do you just want to mention how people can continue to follow along, and maybe a minute or two on how you see things evolving at this stage of the game, or how people might be able to fund the project?
Yeah. So I don't remember what your first two questions were, but yeah, we do have a GoFundMe, how people can follow along. Yeah, we have, so there's Facebook, Eden Grove Artists and Residents Program on Facebook. And then Instagram, it's just Eden_Grove_air. And then we have a website, edengroveair.com. And I'm not the best at posting regularly. Something I keep trying to be more regular, but there's kind of a backlog, honestly, of work that's been made that I've wanted to share. If you're going to get this is a post I've been wanting to do for weeks that I haven't done. If you are going to get your second vaccine, you will be able to see one of Jeremy's paintings, because it is now owned by the city of Victoria, which is awesome. And they approved a panel, like a little info, panel that is installed. So when you go in to get your vaccination, if you go to the Victoria Conference Center, where you get signed in, right as you're walking into that kind of hallway, on the right hand side is Jeremy's painting called The Ent. And then right across the hall, there's some info about the blockades and about the residency program and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And we're going to work on making posters actually of that painting to sell, that I think will contribute towards fundraisers for the Artist in Residence program. There is a GoFundMe, and I think now that we have sort of a clear idea of what's coming, like we want to have an exhibition, and that there'll be some costs associated with it, I feel like I'm gonna start promoting the GoFundMe more to raise some money to go towards that, and then hopefully like a publication as well that would go along with that, sort of in the short term, something probably something small in the short term, and then something hopefully more substantial next year. And yeah, in terms of like where the program goes, physically, don't really know, because the RCMP right now is blocking off access to like all these tracts of old growth, including Walbrand. So it's pretty frustrating. I think some people can get to River. I know that they're sort of telling people, if you go past a certain point, and if today happened to be the day when the RCMP are going to come and kind of shut the whole thing down, we're going to do a hard blockade and you can't get out. But it's pretty, I don't think that's imminent, and it's just kind of a weird situation. But I would say that River is, fairly accessible, kind of at your own discretion, at your own risk type situation. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I don't know if we go on a trip to Carmana, together to get out and keep that inspiration going, or what we do. But or if we get a bus and just sort of take it to where it's accessible and it's mobile. Don't exactly know. So we're just thinking about all those things, playing with ideas. But I think now that like originally the residency program was like booking chunks of time in that studio, in the studio tent, and it was sort of like these residencies that were going to be concurrent to an extent, but also kind of sequential. And so then that's part of the reason it was a little more limited in terms of the number of artists. But I feel like now that we're looking at exhibiting work, there's kind of the opportunity to include a few more people that have been doing work around these subjects for a while now, and have been engaged in and getting out onto the land and making work about the experience of being in old growth forest and industry and all of it. Yeah, and then of course I'm always like trying to involve more Indigenous artists as well. So really wanting to reach out to more Indigenous artists and include them, and more women too. Trying to grow it in that balanced and diverse way. So yeah, BIPOC artists. So any other questions, or is there anything that I forgot to say? Anything any of the other artists want to say? I'm just yeah, really grateful to everybody that's participated, and it's just been so rich, and I'm just always in awe of what all the artists are doing and how they're engaging with the forest. And yeah, if we do this again, it'd be great to have somebody like Quinn here to kind of talk about their experience of being at the camp and having the Artist in Residence program there, and kind of what that relationship looked like and how they kind of fed each other. Jeremy, I see your hand. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say you know, the Eden Grove infrastructure and is gone for now, but the last painting I just did, this one here, I did that at River Camp, and that was just, I just got back from that 3 days ago. And I just wanted to say that to anybody who's listening, it's worth going to camp. Go to HQ and explore, go up to River, visit the forest. And even if you're not going to go there to make art, go there to witness the culture and to accept Bill Jones's invitation to go into the forest and pray and find your spiritual healing, because it's a real thing. So I just wanted to mention that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, it does really change you, and I think changes your perspective and perception when you actually do just get out into the forest and experience it, and also experience the commitment of the land defenders and their their resolve and the community. And I mean, the community changes all the time on a day-to-day basis depending who's there, but to see the collaboration that happens and how people just step up and do the jobs that need to be done and bring themselves to it, bring their skills and their talents and their interests to it. And somehow here we are, like it's almost been a year, and it just blows me away, you know, every day, waiting to get the report of the day, you know, and hear what happened and see all the new ideas and yeah, just that resiliency and grit, you know, that people have.
It's also, I'd like to add that, you know, for a lot of people that maybe haven't been there, they might think, they might have some apprehensions or something like that, but it's not scary. It's actually a very hospitable place. It's beautiful. And even if the cops do show up, they'll give you an opportunity to leave if you want. But also the folks at the blockade will give you an opportunity to participate if you want. So you're not really, it's safe to go there. And I encourage people to go there and see it for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Like, unless you're locked into something, you're not going to get arrested. There was, you know, one instance, the one day in KQs where they kind of kettled people in and arrested people, but nobody was charged. And people are really, a lot of people aren't being charged. If the police acted in ways that threaten people, like physically, their charges are getting dropped, because we, you know, it would all come out in the court case, right? And then yeah, if you're not locked into something, pretty much you're not getting charged. So yeah, and on the weekends, anytime when there's a huge group of people have been able to kind of push past the police line and just bring so much energy and support to the people that are at camp. And there's lots of amazing creative actions that are happening there. I've actually talked to a couple of people there's one person that wants to do a kids art camp on site, you know, for free. And there's another artist that wants to bring kind of this mobile gallery up there. And it's like every day there's just new ideas, and there's just so much potential, and there's a lot we can do in the city too. Jeremy and I have been scheming and dreaming up some things that I'm excited about, and we'll see what happens, and we'll let you know. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jessie. I think that's probably a good spot to wrap it up. And thanks everybody for coming. I felt really honored to hear you guys all speak. It was wonderful. It's a fantastic project. You know, I think we're currently witnessing, and a lot of us are participating in a revolution as Indigenous people and their allies rise up to protect their lands and peoples against this destructive colonial powers that we've all lived under for, you know, far too long. And the devastation that's happening right now at Fairy Creek I mean, it's horrible. I don't even know how to describe it. You know, as of yesterday, there were 267 people have been arrested. And Indigenous land defenders and their settler allies are being dangerously removed from the blockades the day that I was at Waterfall, you know, the feet of the excavator were pressing into the ground, not 3 feet from the land defenders' heads that were locked in as the bucket reached over to grab another person. It would never, ever be allowed on any construction site. And, you know, the fact that everyone is here tonight means we all care about this issue a lot. Everybody will be getting that participated in tonight or signed up to come tonight, a follow-up email where we'll have all the Eden Grove information, the Artists in Residence program and how to get in touch, as well as different websites and Instagram accounts that are important to follow to kind of see exactly what's happening, or, you know, as best we can, what's happening up there each day, and other actions that are possible to take. At Parents for Climate, we're currently in the planning stages of our next action, which will be a large public art installation of some kind. And you can join our group to stay informed, to follow us on Facebook. That information will also come into the email that everyone receives. And I just wanted to end tonight with some words from Katie George Jim, who most of us will know as Bill Jones' niece. And this was a quote that was posted in a video by the Rainforest Flying Squad on National Indigenous Peoples Day. And she says, "Our ancestors are watching. They are here. They're with us and they're here with you. We can rewrite colonial legacies, but it is up to direct action. Remember that you have power outside of what this colonial institution represents. You have the power to be in relation to the land." I think those are good words to end on. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It was a lovely evening.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Karen, for hosting Parents for Climate Change.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Thanks, Jessie, for
so
all your
much,
hard
everybody.
work.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, artists and protectors and everybody.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Night, everyone.
Thanks.